Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Good morning. In case you've just joined, this is Good Morning Uganda. We begin at exactly 6:30 every morning, so make it a date with us. It's exactly 8:09, so wherever you are, in case you're not yet at your workstation, well, that explains how much time you're left with, depending on the time you start your day. I'm Kirabo, Nyonyintono. Welcome to Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Now, in this segment, we usually have a guest or guests in studios and we discuss an issue of national concern. Now today we are going to be looking at Government of Uganda revising its bilateral agreement on labor externalization of domestic workers with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. And joining me on set is Ashe Chitandwe, who happens to be the CEO of Enjazi Limited. Now it's one of the many companies we have in this country that are dealing in different number of services, but among them is labor externalization. Ashe, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Robert. Good morning, viewers.
Well, we all remember, or in case you don't know, I want to inform you that Government of Uganda only has a bilateral agreement on labor externalization of domestic workers with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Any other country where someone tells you they are working as domestic workers, they're there illegally. Now, this was a 5-year contract which expired in December, and the two governments had agreed to have an extension of 2 months. So it made it clear that now no girls would be recruited to leave unless those that were found within the line. So many of these companies, therefore, could not take any girls because we didn't have a running contract. However, prior to that contract expiring, there was so much regarding the welfare of girls. We had so much negative stories. We had so much rumors, and of course, those justified. So this called for governments to review on how best they can move forward. And last week, the news came in that Government of Uganda and Saudi Arabia had come to a common ground with new content added in the previous agreement to ensure it promotes the safety of Ugandan girls that are working in Saudi Arabia. And so I want to start with Ashe.
Right.
One, when we talk about domestic workers in Saudi Arabia, many will know them. They have so many terms. Here we call them housemaids. Some have branded them Bakadama. It's now a common thing here in Uganda. Others could have other names.
House managers.
House managers, yes. But let's begin by understanding the recruitment companies that are now about 300 when I last checked. I don't know if another one has been, you know, the line at one time you guys were only about 75. Then
Right.
we went to 200, 270, now it's 300. But what do you exactly do? Just to get shape to our discussion.
Right. Thank you very much, Robert. First of all, Robert, through an act of parliament in the year 2005, the government came up with regulations on how to manage the whole labor externalization process and sector as well. Because remember, in the early 2000s, especially in 2003, during the Iraq War, many Ugandans went to work as security guards in Iraq, and because of those numbers, government realized that this had to be managed. So that's where it all started. So as years went by, because of the quality of Ugandans that had been deployed in these countries, they realized that actually we could also tap into these good quality Ugandans. So in the year 2015, there were Ugandans that had started getting work in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the government in 2017 decided to actually sit down with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to come up with a proper framework in which to operate in. And in this case, they called that a labor bilateral agreement. So under that bilateral agreement, many clauses had to be incorporated so that it works. And in 2018, Uganda signed its first ever bilateral agreement with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So when we signed that, it was running for 5 years. Robert, you should know that for Ugandans, this was very new. But for countries like the Philippines, I mean, they had been going to Saudi Arabia for over 40 years. So you realize that because it was new, there were very many things we had to learn, on job, if I may say. And the first 5 years, yes, they were good, but we also had very many challenges. So in December last year, this labor bilateral agreement expired, and there was an extension of 2 more months till the 23rd of February this year to work out mechanisms and also review those clauses that had to be reviewed and stuff like that, to make sure that the renewal takes care of all those challenges we've been having as a sector. So on the 29th of March this month, 2023, our minister signed, and of course the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia also signed. So we've the government renewed this particular labor bilateral agreement, and yes, there are changes there, as we may discuss as we go ahead.
Well, before we go to these changes, right, just to help our viewer move with us properly,
right.
Major thing in this contract and the major concern, because fellow Ugandans, we must know that if it is money, this sector is one of the sectors that brings in a lot of money. When we talk about Saudi Arabia alone, last year it brought in over $700 million US from Saudi Arabia. That is a lot of money coming to our treasury. So it's not money is not the concern, because the money is coming into the country. But the main concern now is safety, welfare of these girls. That has been the biggest problem. But let's begin by looking at the journey of a young girl from Uganda to Saudi Arabia, because this will give us more reasoning to understand if what was revised holds water, will improve or not. For a young girl watching us who wants maybe to go to Saudi Arabia, because actually if you're going to a domestic worker, it's the only country you can go to and you're protected by the law. How does this process begin and how does it end, briefly?
Thank you very much, Robert, for that very good question. I'm also going to go back to your first question. What do we do? So I want to integrate the two, that question and the first question. The very first thing you do as a Ugandan young lady who wants to go and work in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is to find out, seek information. If you're up country, you can visit your resident district commissioner or RDC, or your district internal security officer or DSOs. They have these lists of companies that are registered. Or your district labor officer. They can give you this information. If you're around Kampala, you can visit the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. They're just right behind Central Police Station or CPS here in Kampala. You can go...
That's a Simba Manyo building.
It is now called the Gender and Labor House. It was rebranded from Simba Manyo to that. Then, if you want to seek information and maybe you're out of the country, you can also visit the website of the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. They have a management information system that is operated online. which is called the External Employment Management Information System, or EMIS. You can seek all this information. So, after you've done that, you've identified the company you want to go to, or the agency, then the agency should be able to take you through what is expected. For example, you should be above 21 years of age. Anyone below 21 years of age is not allowed to leave the country, to go and work in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So they take you through. After they've done that, you start on the process. Because in most cases, Robert, they come without passports, so the companies provide, they pay for their passports, because this is actually taken care of by the employer. So the company works on your passport, then you go for training. There is a mandatory training of 14 days through an accredited training center by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. So after those 14 days, that is when now you qualify to actually receive a contract. Now, there is a management information system called Mosanet by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, where all these contracts are sent, all these approvals are done. So, on our side here, the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is on that system. The Ministry of Labour in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is on that system. So every Ugandan that has traveled to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, both governments have this information. So all the approvals are done on that online system. So when the approvals have been done, there is what we call a Mosanet approval. Once that approval has been done, and there is also an EMIS approval, or the External Employment Management Information System approval, that is when a clearance is issued. But before that, we need to go for what we call a visa medical, or GCC. There are medical centers in Uganda that were accredited by the Gulf Council to carry out these thorough medical tests. So these medical centers are the only ones that we send these candidates so that they are able to actually carry out these medical tests. And once we have the results from those medical tests, we apply for a visa. Before they give you a visa, before the embassy of Saudi Arabia gives you issues a visa to you, they need to check these records, and you need to be fit. If you're fit medically, then you're offered a visa, and then of course issues of tickets, and then come in. But going back a bit behind the issue of the contract, what we do, we invite the next of kin and these particular candidates, and we sensitize them on this particular contract. We go through these contracts clause by clause, both in English and our local languages, so that someone understands, even the family, the next of kin, so that they understand the content of this particular contract, so that they know in the next 2 years, this is the guiding constitution.
And of course, the contract was not, and it's not drafted by you. No. It is drafted by government of Uganda, and that is the Saudi Arabia government. It was agreed upon
by the two nations.
So it is universal in all recruitment companies.
Right.
Now, that said, Ashi, this pushes me to now discussing specific areas in the revised agreement that really involve, because there are those that are between the two governments. For example, the issue of attaches, that we can't hold you accountable as labor recruitment agencies. But we want to look at those specific that are answering these questions. One, death of a migrant worker, which has become a problem in the finished contract. Returning the body. You want to look at those that look at protection that involve you as well. So just a few that exactly touch these outstanding areas.
Right. First of all, Robert, in the new bilateral agreement, all those issues that were, in the gray area have been, tackled very well. For example, the two governments are now obligated to find solutions and also resolve any labor disputes to do with especially their welfare That is number one. Number two, the two governments now agreed to have an integrated system where the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is also part of the IMI system and vice versa, so that they're able to actually track. Then also, there have been issues of people, apparently my salary has been deducted. Now that is prohibited. Then there is also, for any legal disputes, the two nations are obligated to see them through to the last part. Because you see, there have been issues and they've been thrown back to the companies. You know, issues that need government and government to talk to each other. So in this case, those will be handled. But also, Robert, there is another issue here. Both parties to take legal measures against employers. You see, people have been saying that employers are untouchable. So, against employers and recruitment agencies, you know, that violates any laws, rules, or regulations. So, the law is going to be right on the employers and also ourselves in case we do things that is outside the law. Okay, Robert? Then, the government of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is to ensure that employers respect terms and conditions of the employment contract. Now, the government of Saudi Arabia is going to make sure that it handles its people there, the employers, with an iron hand, so that we don't have all these, you know, issues. Then, an employer wishing to transfer the services of an employee to another employer is obligated to inform the Ugandan and the recruitment, and the Saudi recruitment agencies before the transfer. Because, you know, locally people say, oh, bamutunze wanova, you know, that kind of language. But an employer, for reasons best known to them, may wish they cannot continue. But this person has a 2-year contract, remember. So if they wish to transfer this particular employee to another employer, they are supposed to inform the Ugandan recruitment agencies and the Saudi recruitment agency. Then also, Robert, both parties, that is the Ugandan government and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, are prohibited, are to ensure that all workers have recourse to competent authorities in cases of contractual disputes. That is very, very key, Robert. So any contractual disputes, both parties have the obligation to ensure that these are dealt with. Then, Robert, an employee wishing to renew their contract must inform the Saudi and the Ugandan recruitment agencies and also seek the approval of the Embassy of Uganda in Riyadh. Because you see, Robert, you've been asking me that if I want to renew and I don't want to come back to Uganda first, what do I do? So in this case, they're telling you, inform the Ugandan agency, inform the Saudi agency, then inform the Embassy of Uganda in Saudi Arabia. Then that transfer will be handled accordingly, because they need to know where you are. Yes, Robert. Then, Robert, there is a joint technical committee that is going to be formed for monitoring and implementation of the bilateral labor agreement. And this will be constituted within 2 months. You see, they signed on the 29th. So within the next 2 months, they should be able to come up with this.
But that has been a long wait. And I know, of course, we have having a series of these shows. We hope that this time around, because actually between you and me and many watching, since government first signed the first agreement, what was agreed upon was the technical committee. Many years down the road, we failed to have this committee there and function. What was agreed upon were the attaches of government. It only came out and said now recruitment companies must have attaches. Recruitment companies, not government. Whose attaches, I may excuse Njazi, but many of them, I found them very wanting. It was all about someone who can speak Arabic. Some were using former domestic workers and then calling them and saying now you're unattached. Gee, how empowered are they? So I think, but that is something for government. Now, I want us to look at the burning issues that this revised contract was supposed to address and see as it addressed them. Let's begin with the most common one. Trafficking is no longer a problem. If it is very minimal. And I want to thank people like you and Uwera who've really invested in fighting trafficking of girls for externalization of labor as domestic workers. Now everyone will tell you I have to go through a company, I have to go through a company. But one of the most disturbing is the element of communication of these girls and retention of documents. How was this tackled? Because you find that most of the girls, when they leave, communication becomes the problem. Much as the previous argument had touched on leaving them with gadgets. We come to recruitment companies, they are struggling, some of them, to locate these girls. Let's begin with that. Because that's where parents fidget and they're all over media. Then they go on TikTok, they go everywhere. And this information is seen on the other side.
Right.
So how do we begin with that communication? How was it addressed?
Right, Robert, thank you very much. Even in the previous contracts, truth of the matter is that that particular contract has the details of the employer, their contact details, their location, all that information is there. And every young lady that is going to work in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, this was agreed upon in 2018 that they should have a mobile phone, a smartphone to be specific, where they can have a video call, and our teams there, the ones you call attaches, our teams there can be able to see the physical being of this person. Secondly, if for some reason we are not able to reach her, then we go through, we contact her employer and demand to speak to her. 1 month we've not heard from Lady X, and we are worried. We want to, talk to her. Then the employer has to make sure that we speak to this person. And if that does not happen, through our embassy, they are able to write to the Ministry of Labor of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to summon this particular person and demand that we communicate. So those measures are there, Robert. And that's why I'm really, really happy with the revised agreement. Because right before, it was all on the recruitment agencies. But now, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is taking responsibility. The Ugandan government is also taking extra responsibility. And I think there we are able to move as a team now. Because before, they just write to the company, do ABCD. And it was all on us.
Which was slightly hard because Saudi Arabia is a very big country. Then second, how would an attaché knock on the gate of a general in Saudi Arabia and say we demand to speak? It was really very hard. So if that is one of the things that now government comes in, let's also look at the other element, which is health. We've had a number of stories, even despite the fact that we talk about medical. I don't know if this medical has been revised or there are any other ingredients, because we've had a number of stories of missing parts. Kidney, though some have been unique, I never knew that a person can have one kidney. I just got to know of the cases that we are having, that maybe even you and me may have one kidney. Because most of these stories have been proven that this person had one kidney. I'm like, okay, hope this medical will include kidneys. But how has this been factored in the health of these girls? Issues of treatment, issues of not feeling fine. They leave Uganda, they have passed tests that they are very healthy. Then you see them return, and the company says, we are in touch with the employee. We are in touch. We are in touch with the family that has her. but after the in-touch results seem very funny.
Right. Robert, thank you very much for that. Very good question. But also I want to take you back on the issue of the travel documents. It is illegal to keep this employee's passport. It is illegal, and once that happens, we encourage them to report to us so that we are able to actually communicate with their employers to return them with immediate effect. It is illegal. It is not allowed. Secondly, on the issue of medical, Robert, like I explained, we have a thorough medical examination that is carried out by medical centers accredited by the Gulf Council here before they go. If there is a missing kidney or some stuff like that, I would presume they would see that and they should be able to produce a report to that effect. But talking about the destination country, which is Saudi Arabia in this case, the contract is very clear. If the domestic worker falls sick, you as the employer, you're obligated to take her to hospital and she receives medical attention. In cases where, because we've had cases, Robert, where this particular person says, for me, I don't want to go to hospital. You know, for fear of what you've just mentioned. You know, between me and you, Robert, I don't have any proof to that effect, but I've also had like you. And there is only one case that is still in court that whose results we all don't know. We are still waiting. But in my years, as I'm looking in this camera, I've been in this sector for very many years, and I've not experienced that case in my company. That is the truth. So, Robert, I want us to be extremely careful because we need evidence. We need evidence when we are discussing this. But what I know is that if there is sickness, the employer is obligated to take this particular employee to a hospital. And once they receive this medical attention, then of course the following up and all that is done. That is what I know, Robert, on that particular issue.
Well, also now let's look at the other issue, which is also very problematic, is eventuality of death,
right,
or a worker losing interest in working, because there are areas also that have brought problems.
Right.
Once someone dies, the recruitment company says that they are not obliged to return the body. Someone dies and the recruitment company says, well, for us, the contract ended. So how has this been put in to ensure that we do not have these issues of people crying for bodies to return,
right,
away from crying for their loved ones, but crying for bodies to return?
Okay. Thank you, Robert. And this has two scenarios. Scenario number one, this particular person went through the system, they were externalized, and for very unfortunate reasons, this person passes away. Now, the Ugandan agency is supposed, or the Ugandan company, is supposed to work with the Saudi Arabian partnering company, together with the embassy of Uganda in Saudi Arabia, to repatriate the remains of this particular person. In cases where the person had already run away from their original employer, for you as a company, you may not know where this particular person is actually. And because of that, we encourage them, when you run away, it is not safe for you out there because you're no longer in the jurisdiction that we already know. Because remember, you leave Uganda, you're going to work in House X. If there is a transfer, like I mentioned, the Saudi agency and the Ugandan agency have to be informed so that a proper transfer is carried out. But in cases where someone has run away, there you're outside our area of operation. What do I mean? We don't know where you are, okay? And whatever happens to you, we are not responsible because we don't know where you are. You've run away. Secondly, if you happen to die, yes, as a company that originally took you to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, we can we coordinate with the Saudi agency in case we've received that news, work with the embassy and follow up on the repatriation process of those remains, Robert. Yes, that is what I can explain. Yes, Robert.
Well, we can take a long time discussing this, but I think the main bottlenecks that have been a problem to this sector, which of course we must also accept that has created a lot of employment for many Ugandans, better employment, and of course if well streamlined and the law followed to the latter, one thing I can guarantee you is that countries like the Philippines have been in Saudi Arabia for about 40 years plus.
Yes.
And you just wonder how smooth this sector is handled, and you don't have what we have today. Of course, it's been a long journey, so much to learn, and still a long journey for us and many things to learn. But Ashe, as we wind up, what are your concluding remarks?
Actually, Robert, I also wanted to highlight this. In fact, now the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is a member of the International Labour Organization. And yes, and they've ILO, and they've established now new labor laws and a new administrative regime that is in accordance with international labor standards. So there is a very big step there. It's taken by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I think this will check all these other areas as well. So for me, that is a very, very big plus, Robert. And also, I want to encourage Ugandans, go through proper channels. Go through proper channels. Go through recruitment agencies that are registered and licensed. In case of any issues that may arise during the course of your recruitment process or deployment, you have a fallback position of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development. But also, if you want to seek information, Robert, you can also have open access to the Uganda Association of External Recruitment Agencies, or UERA. We are on BMK House on the 4th floor. Please go to our offices and seek this information. Thank you, Robert.
Well, I just want to thank you so much for your time, and of course I highly believe that there's so much we expect to see the transformation in this sector, but I want to emphasize it is a growing sector.
Right.
And of course we must believe there could be this, it's a learning journey, but we hope we are on the right foundation. Let's support this sector. There could be some irregularities here and there, but it's work in progress, and we hope the government of Uganda, I want to emphasize this, that the government of Uganda, when it comes to that technical committee and the attaches being placed in Saudi Arabia, please let's do that, because these recruitment agencies can only do so much without government attaches, government involvement. And I highly respect and believe the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia will respect the terms and conditions and give overwhelming support to this sector. See you in the next hour. God bless you.
Salam alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakat from the Union of Muslim Women and Organizations in Uganda.